Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to remind you each and every day, it expands our base. The world has dramatically changed since last I sat behind this microphone. Over the weekend, the decision was made by the United States to support Israel in its effort to prevent Iran from developing a nuclear weapon. Let's be clear about several key things. First, the United States is not at war with Iran. What the United States did with Israel was a precision attack against a group of facilities, 3 to be precise, which were engaged in the development of a nuclear weapon. There is no war, and let's hope there is no war. What there was a determined effort to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear weapons state. And so Iran has been stopped, and the move by the United States and Israel was a constructive step, and a huge sigh of relief is being uttered by people in the Middle East, in Europe, and yes, around the world. What President Trump did was absolutely on target, and I mean that as a double entendre. Yes, they prevented Iran from continuing the development of a nuclear capability, but number 2, they set a clear standard. The standard is that if you threaten your neighbor with a nuclear device, you've got to be stopped. Why do I say it's not a war? A war employs the armies of nations. Iran's army is not being deployed. What we do have reason to fear is terror. That is to say, those who back Iran or the Islamic revolutions as we have seen them play out, who may now seek revenge against the United States of America and Israel. We need to understand very clearly that terror is a whole different bag of beans. And what I mean by that is it can be state-sponsored or it can be an individual. And we have seen both as examples. It is also important to note that Iran's major allies in the region have been crippled by the Israelis, who in a very effective last year have destroyed Hamas, Hezbollah, Islamic Jihad, who have taken on the whole range of forces, including Yemen, in Lebanon with Hezbollah, and let's hope that the destruction of Iran's allies limits the ability it will have to, if you will, use terror in the days ahead. That's the danger, in my judgment. The judgment of nations against Iran is clear, but individuals or terror groups or cells, which we are told may exist, may yet strike. And so we are seeing now a fascinating development. There is another element here, and that is the power of the President of the United States. Those of you who have listened to my podcasts in recent days know that I have said that a declaration of war is not necessary for executive action. Let's be clear. We have not had a war, a declared war, since 1941. In fact, what we have basically done, from the American point of view, are hitting things that we think are important through the power of the presidency. And that's why who is President of the United States matters so much. This action by President Trump did not require congressional approval. Read the War Powers Act, and you will understand that what we did was not a declaration of war at all. Now, would it have been better if Donald Trump had briefed Democrats on the action that was about to be taken? The answer is yes. He gave a briefing to Republican leadership. He should have given the same briefing to Democratic leadership. We are told that President Trump did give the high sign to Chuck Schumer, the Democratic leader in the Senate, but we don't know when that was done or how it was done or what was really conveyed. I think what is important here is that executive action, when it comes to security in the world, we rely on the judgment of a president. Now, some will argue that the judgment of Donald Trump is defective. Well, there were those who said the same thing about Joe Biden, and those who said the same thing about Barack Obama, and those who said the same thing about George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush. But my suggestion to you is that if Democrats and some Republicans feel that the process was not done properly, then give us a law which declares a new process. And I would suggest to you very strongly that there is no way that such a law would be crafted or passed in this Congress. There is another aspect of this, and that has to do with trust. Clearly, there is not trust between the branches of government. And the fact that the president chose not to brief the Democrats, to me, indicates not strength, but weakness. The idea of building consensus before you take action is critical. And let me be clear, I believe there was and is consensus that Iran should never have been permitted to have a nuclear weapon. I believe that comes from all corners of the American system. And so, where are we on this Monday after an attack less than 48 hours ago, which has restructured the way Iran will function, and yes, how the world will relate to Iran? Do we favor regime change? Let me be clear. There was regime change in Iran when the Shah was overthrown, but it was a popular uprising. If there is to be regime change in Iran, it must come because of popular demand. I know it's a tall order, but we have learned a valuable lesson, and that is that it is nearly impossible for us to impose regime change for the better. Therefore, it must be generated by the people themselves. We're going to be watching several things in the days ahead. We're going to be watching how the Iranian people respond to what has happened. We're going to watch how the mullahs, who now govern Iran, how they respond. We want to know how the world will respond to the very interesting developments, including a resolution passed by the Iranian parliament, at least that's the information we have, to close the Strait of Hormuz. You have to realize that that kind of economic pressure would require the world to react. 25% of the world's oil flows through the Strait of Hormuz, and if Iran tries to close it, there will most assuredly be a reaction from the world. This is a time when we need to stop and think and consider. We need to listen to what the world is saying, what our leaders are saying, and how we are going to proceed. This is a dramatic moment in history, a turning point. This morning, I took my copy of Hiroshima by John Hersey off the desk, and I looked carefully at the reminder of what it means, even if a low-grade nuclear weapon is used. This world must understand that nuclear weapons, well, are risky. We've been very fortunate since 1945 that there has not been a nuclear war, and we have to hope that there will never be such a war. But I am afraid of nuclear terror. That is to say, a rogue state like Iran possessing a nuclear device, even low grade, which could have, frankly, caused havoc. Imagine such a device dropped on Tel Aviv, a Hiroshima-type bomb. It would have, caused the death of at least 1 million people, if not more. So we live in risky times. I believe Israel and the United States did the world a favor in eliminating the nuclear threat. But now we go forward. How do we proceed? What do we do? And how will the world respond to a new world without the threat of Iranian nuclear weapons? Boy, oh boy, we certainly do live in interesting times. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am John Rothman. Make sure to follow along. Let me know your thoughts on the show by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and sharing an episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. And of course, that is our goal. I want to point out that you can, as you have been all weekend, emailing, posting on LinkedIn, and letting me know your thoughts through a variety of devices, including direct email. This is an important time. My only regret is that we do not have the forum of a KGO radio where we could debate, discuss, and really get into these issues. But in the meantime, I'm delighted to be here with you on Around the Political World with John Rothman. I'll be back tomorrow, and of course, my special appreciation to Gogo Zoger, who makes all of this happen. Thanks, Gogo. All right, everybody, we'll see where the world turns tomorrow, right here on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.